Live streamed. We're on, huh?
Not yet. It's preparing.
No, it says we're on, man. It says we're streaming live on YouTube.
I know, but it's preparing. It's okay. Now we're good.
Yeah, well, it's a little delay. Yeah, we're live. I'm seeing it right on the side here.
Yep.
See if anybody joins us tonight.
I saw last week we had up to like 12 or 14 people listening at one time.
Yeah, man. It's good. People are tuning in. This is nice. Well, hello, anybody who's here in the chat. I don't know if it's anybody yet. We're going to get started in a couple minutes, but Burke was on time for once, so we decided to start the show.
I stayed in for dinner this time, and I also didn't work out because had a couple tough days the last couple of days with workouts. And
so the big question then, what was for dinner?
Steak and carrots.
Steak. I had some steak last night. Me and Meg got Omaha steaks from my parents. You ever had the Omaha steaks?
They're solid. They
were pretty good. They were pretty good. I didn't have the grill set up yet, so we had to cook them inside, which I don't like nearly as much as a grill steak. But
but you can still sear it with the right stuff. I know Gleason would.
I'm sure Gleason would have something.
He has a method to do that, but.
Hey, we had 3 people watching already before tip off. That's good.
Who can you tell who it is?
No, there's probably a way, but I don't know how. If anybody out there watching knows how to see who is watching us, please write it in the chat or just pop in the chat and say, hey, let us know that you're watching so that we don't have to figure that out. We had some comments last week about the poster behind you of the apparently Washington Monument.
It is not a poster. It's actually I guess it's a framed photo. My grandparents had it, and when we moved my grandma out of the house to sell it, that was right around the time where I was moving out to start work out in New Jersey. I ended up taking a few of the photos that were hanging in the house, and this was one of them. I thought it was cool.
Wow. Hey, good backstory, man.
It's the Washington Monument on the 4th of July. Fireworks going off.
We had some curious viewers. They couldn't quite make it out, and they were playing the odds game as to what it was.
You got the Lincoln Memorial. You can see lit up a little bit below with the Washington Monument right there.
Love it.
The big fireworks in the back.
Megan chiming in the chat. Steaks were 9 out of 10. I agree. Omaha steaks, 9 out of 10. Highly recommend to any Chalk Talk listeners. Not getting paid for this advertisement. Maybe this weekend we get some real steaks at the steakhouse. Ruth's Chris, Mohegan Sun. Open invite. Any listeners, welcome to join us.
Maybe we'll do a quick little live session from Ruth Chris.
Yeah, that'd be something. I wish we could stream at the tables. I mean, you obviously can't videotape live casino play, but that would be fun to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's against the rules.
Yeah, that is very illegal. We are trying to work out some sort of live stream of virtual blackjack so that we can teach everybody and also share some of our hopeful winnings with some viewers. So stay tuned for that. We'll probably do that in the next couple of weeks now that football's over. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, because we got a couple of down weeks. Really got two to 3 regular season weeks left of college basketball before we get into championship week. And obviously,
March Madness is going to be the time for that.
We're under a month to go, and things are heating up. My picks are not, but
your picks are not heating up. I was just going to say, man,
but they will be soon. Don't you worry. I'll be able to 100% focus on college basketball from here on out.
All right, man. I'm going to trust you. Got no choice but to trust you. You got to get that record above 500.
It's going to be a tough task in the next few weeks, but if we get hot, we get a hot streak. Anything can happen.
4-4 for me in NBA last night. Still haven't had a losing night. Hanging my hat on that.
Shame.
Man, 4-4. Not what I was looking for on my first day back. And the losses weren't even close. I had the Sixers +2. They were down 50 in the third quarter. I had the Clippers and Suns over 222. That game.
Yeah, I was watching that game last night, and I was like, why are they down by so many points?
Yeah, so the line was fishy one way or the other. And I thought it was fishy in the Sixers' favor. Like it should have been either Sixers favored or Celtics favored by like 8 or 9 because the Celtics have been so hot on the road. So I just thought the +2 was good value for a home team with Embiid playing, but I was on the wrong side of the fishiness. I was right that the line was off, but I picked the wrong side of it. Oh, well, it happens.
Yeah, usually in that situation, if you think the line is fishy, take the team as to why it's fishy for.
Well, I thought it was fishy for the Sixers. I didn't know why they were dogs at home with Embiid playing, but oh well. Seth Curry MVP apparently.
Yeah, that's the trap bet that Vegas wants you to fall into.
Well, maybe if Harden suited up.
I'm sure if you looked at it, the bulk of the money was on Philly with that spread. And of course, Vegas makes out like bandits because Celtics covered by like what was the final score in that game? They win by 30,
like 130 to 90 something.
So if they covered a 30-point spread on an alternate spread, you would have made out pretty
of
nice
course. In hindsight, I would have loved to have taken that. Yeah. All right, man. 8:00. You want to get started?
Yeah, let me
start our recording, my friend. Let's go.
It's go. Hold on.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 15 of the Chalk Talk podcast. 15, Bert, can you believe it? 15 episodes deep. Thank you for everybody listening so far. As a reminder, we live stream these every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on YouTube. So thank you for those of you who are tuning in live to catch our takes, maybe get some hot tips that you may miss if you're listening to us recorded. But I don't want to waste too much breath on anything other than the Super Bowl that we just witnessed. If you can't tell by my homage background to the Los Angeles Rams, I'm a very happy guy this week. I cashed some futures. Burke, we're thinking of naming our firstborn Cooper Doolittle. What do you think?
I think Donald Doolittle would actually be kind of funny. Donnie D.
Donald Duck Doolittle. Aaron Donald Duck Doolittle. I like it. Yeah, two outstanding performances. Big time team performance from the Rams. We're going to recap the whole game. We're going to really dive into it this week. And first, though, I guess we should start with the lighter side of things, the commercials and the halftime show. You have any input on either?
Yeah, I thought the halftime show, for starters, was absolutely fantastic. It lived up to the hype. It was simple. They didn't try to over exaggerate like the theatrics behind it. And it was just the OGs coming together, playing the hits. Everybody was vibing in that place. It was a clinic, hearing those guys again live and all of them coming together. I thought it was an awesome show. One of the best, if not the best, in the last 15 years by far.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was pretty good. I don't think it was the best. It was good. I liked the artist. Obviously, it was nice to see hip hop get the stage on the halftime show. Probably the first time hip hop has gotten the stage on a halftime show. So that's pretty cool. Nice to see, we're probably getting a little older because these are the hip hop artists that were coming up when we were.
Oh yeah,
we were growing up with. Yeah, so it was kind of neat to see that for sure.
Very nostalgic.
Yeah, very very nostalgic. And they all did a good job. Would have liked to see a little bit more Eminem. He only got Lose Yourself, and that was it. I would have liked to see a little bit more of him. And I just think I used to think the halftime shows were like bigger. Am I wrong? Am I missing something? Like they used to have just more to them. No?
Yeah, I know they're on a 15-minute time limit now. So in order to get like a lot of those things choreographed and get everybody their own screen time, you kind of have to split it up evenly. It would have been nice to give Snoop Dogg a solo because he was teamed up with Dr. Dre the entire time. But they also surprised us bringing in 50 Cent with his original classic. That was pretty cool to see a mimic of his music video back in the day. But
pretty cool. Yeah. And also I got a text from our friend Larry that he's looking more like 75 Cent these days. Guys put on a couple pounds.
Yeah, but I think it's cool that Dr. Dre was like the link to all of them, and like he was the one that like worked with each and every one of them and brought them up and got them to the careers that they've obviously went on to have. And it was pretty cool to see them all merge together at the very end, just vibing out to Dre's smash hit, Still Dre. I thought that was very, very cool.
Yeah, no, pretty cool. I'll give it about an 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10. No complaints about it at all. I didn't really pay attention to the commercials much. You did though, and you say one stands out above the rest.
Yeah, you get a bunch of commercial. Like I don't understand. Sometimes you have like an entire year to figure out what to put as your best product in front of the entire nation, the entire world for 30 seconds. And some of the ideas that were thrown out there this past weekend, it was just like, what do you think? How does this get approved? And then I feel like it's just a waste of millions of dollars. But one company that did get it correct, in my opinion, was Chevy, where they did the Sopranos intro, and then reuniting the two kids at the very end who played the brother and sister of Tony Soprano at the end. That was pretty cool to see, and I thought that was extremely well done. Little again, more nostalgia going along with that theme with the halftime show to get those back. So a lot of people in the late '90s, early 2000s really got their money's worth this year, and glad to have witnessed all of it.
Yeah, agreed. I guess I don't remember that one. I really would be hard pressed to remember a single commercial from the Super Bowl, I guess, other than the Coinbase ad. Super cool to see a Coinbase ad as somebody who's interested in crypto. Did you catch that one with like the little QR code moving across the screen?
Yeah, apparently, just throwing the QR code out there for a minute, it blew up that app.
Yeah, it did. It crashed their app for a little bit, which is
downloaded it, and it was like
it's
very
pretty cool.
Strategic move, very simple but very effective.
Very effective. And of course, we're all watching it, waiting for that QR code to go perfectly in the corner, like that episode of The Office, right? Like
yeah, classic. Classic.
We had a couple people over here and we erupted when it did finally hit the corner. Yeah. And I know this is a gambling pod, not a crypto pod, but for some people making their tweet rounds out there that crypto sucks because you never see advertisements for money. It's not an advertisement for crypto. It's an advertisement for the exchange, which is the same as a Wells Fargo commercial or Fidelity commercial, which you see all the effing time. So I don't want to get on my crypto soapbox, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, let's get to the game.
Let's get to the game. Let's get to the important part. Let's get to the Rams, man. They did it. They cashed my ticket. I can't believe it. And yet I can believe it because I've been preaching it all along. And again, to toot my own horn for a second, a lot of people probably picked the Rams to win the Super Bowl and probably like 7 other teams as well. I didn't place a single futures bet on any other team other than the Rams. And I hope that some of you have joined me. One of our followers, Donovan, won my contest midseason where I gave away part of my ticket. And at the time, I forget when it was, like November or something, but he received $500 today as part of a 14-1 odds ticket. And I sent that to him today. So congratulations to you, Donovan. Congratulations to us all. Thanks for those who rode. I did hedge and then I unhedged. And what I did was actually started with the Bengals +3 as my hedge. And I took that at +125 odds. And then when they went down early, I actually cashed it out. So I cashed it out at a little profit. And then at some point in the game, I took them +6 again at like +120 odds. And then by the end of the game, I had cashed that out too. So I actually made a little bit of money on that. They would have pushed the +3. So my initial hedge would have paid me back and I would have lost no money hedging. So I did it right. But most of that game I was unhedged. What do you think about that strategy?
I mean, I thought I didn't hedge the game either. I was one-sided on my picks here, thinking where the money was going on this game, fade the money a little bit. That was my thought process. And again, a lot of the money was on the Rams. We had talked about that last week or on side conversations between me and you. And I felt like Vegas may have been a little off with the line, more favoring the Rams than they should have. I thought the game was going to be a lot closer than it was, which I turned out to be on the right side of things. But in your respect, you had quite a bit of dough out there exposed. And I'm sure watching that game, you were a little bit nervous on your end, especially with the Bengals with the lead so late. I would have been sweating a little bit if I was in your shoes.
Yeah, I mean, and we can cut right to it. I think, I don't approve of hedging normally because, again, we've said this before, it's a negative EV, a negative expected value, right? If you have conviction in something and you believe it to be true and you get close to it being correct, you don't want to hedge and take yourself out of a win. I think the only hedge that made sense was for me to take the Bengals +3, which is a key number, which means I can get that at plus money and theoretically win both. I wouldn't have taken the Bengals money line and guaranteed a loss one way or the other, So I think that's the only real strategy that made sense for me. But I did end up cashing it out. And surprisingly, and you could back this up from the people that were here, I was nervous, but I never wavered from the fact that I thought the Rams were going to win the game. I never thought that the Bengals were in a controlling position in that game. Now I know it was tight, and I know they were actually up for the majority of the fourth quarter. But I just never really wavered from the Rams pick. I think I would have picked them in the moment. I almost hedged on the final drive. And if you want to take a guess, so the Rams score the touchdown, they go up 3, right? There's like a minute and 10 left or something.
Yeah.
And Burrow gets the ball back. I think it's a touchback, right, on the 25.
Yeah.
You want to take a guess at what the Bengals live money line odds were at that moment? Down 3 with the ball, a minute 10 left.
Well, at that point, Burrow's playing hurt, obviously. So kind of takes away his running. You're probably still like plus 160, 170.
Yeah. So I think like a Mahomes in that scenario is probably like minus 110 or even odds, right?
Yeah.
The Bengals were plus 265 at that moment. And I know because that's the first time I checked my phone to say, I need to throw like a grand or two on this just to cover my ass at that point, right? And I didn't. And one of my friends here actually talked me out of it. I'm very thankful because I would have lost that bet. But plus 265 seemed a little high. So maybe it's the fact that he was hurt. Maybe it's the fact that they knew the Rams defense was the best unit on the field and like it would come down to that. But they were, across midfield seemingly in 5 seconds. And that could have very easily gone to overtime and cashed your plus 9 something bet.
Yeah. I mean, I know they were playing. It looked like they were going to be playing for overtime, just get McPherson in range to get a kickoff. Give him a shot. He's been money the entire playoffs. Again, he didn't miss again on Sunday, but yeah, credit to the best unit on the field, which was that Rams pass rush coming up big in the biggest moment of the game.
Yeah, well, they really showed up, and we have a couple people in the chat talking about how Ken was unhedged and unhinged at the same time because those words were basically interchangeable for my thought process of it for the last 10 minutes of that Super Bowl. I was going nuts, but it was.
I'm sure you were. I'm sure you were.
It was fun, man. It all worked out in the end. And let's just say this was the worst possible outcome for the books. The favorite wins the game, so all the underlying or the underdog money lines don't cash. But the favorite doesn't cover. So not only do you have underdog money lines not paying, you have favorites where the money is not paying, and you had the under. The under hit, and you and I knew the under was going to hit, although it was scary early. The under did hit. So the public loves the overs. The public loves the favorites, and the public does not usually take the plus points with the dogs. They usually take them outright. So, this was the best possible outcome for the books, which is insane.
Agreed. Except for, well, yes, because on the spread, the big money was all over the Rams on this one. So
right.
Bengals.
But you had a lot of public money on the Bengals money line, not plus the points on the money line.
The money line play was definitely the Bengals, but on the spread, the big money was on the Rams. And
right. So the books really made out.
The books did well. I played the fade on that one, watching the money go over the last 2 weeks, and decided to settle on the Bengals covering the spread. And again, you had mentioned it right before the game. Again, backing your Rams statement, you didn't feel that the Bengals could get it done. So the safe play would be to go with the spread. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And I mean, it worked out to be a perfect middle. And it's funny. So, the line was 4 all week, and you knew if you were a Rams bettor, you had to take the 4 because you knew it was going to 4.5. Or if you studied anything, you knew it was going to 4.5 eventually. So if you liked the Rams, you got them at -4 or -3.5 when it opened. That extra point looms incredibly large now for Rams backers. And it cost a lot of people at least a push on the spread. And as soon as that missed extra point, it happens, you're in trouble if you're a Rams -4, right? You just know it's going to come back to bite you at some point.
Yeah. And somehow I took that bet a lot earlier than I wanted to. And I got the line at 4.5, which I would have been safe either way. But a lot
plus
of people,
4.5 though. Yeah.
Yes. But a lot of people got that line. I think at least on FanDuel that it ended. Game line was -4.5 or 4.5.
It was 4.5. And that's what I'm saying. If you were a Rams bettor, you knew you had to take the -4 because it wasn't. And we discussed Caesars dropped it to 3.5 for about 12 hours in the middle of the week. They took a lot of Rams action on that. They were just trying to gauge the appetite for it at 3.5, but it didn't matter. It never got to Rams -3, right? So if you were on the Rams side of this, you got them at 3.5 or you got them at 4. You lost either way. If you're on the Bengals side of this and you're a smart Bengals bettor, you knew you were going to get a 4.5 line eventually because you knew the money would come in on the Rams.
Yep.
And if you waited, which Burke did, so props to you, man, even though it's un-American to fade your co-host, you
Nope.
got him plus,
I
you
didn't
got him
fade
plus
you.
four and
I
a
did
half.
not fade you. I did not fade you. I just said the Bengals would cover, not win the game.
You're right. You got him plus 4.5, which was the wise move. So if you were a Bengals better and you got them at -4 or -3 or +4 or +3.5, that's on you. And well, actually, yeah, no, they covered that, didn't they? Yeah.
They covered
They lost
4
by
and
3.
3.5. They lost by
Yeah.
3.
So it would have been on you if that extra point was made. I guess is the point, right?
Because well, that would have been the difference between 3 and 4. So the 3.5 would have gotten messed up.
You need to be a smart better is my point. You knew that if you were on the Bengals end, you knew it was going to 4.5. You should have waited because in theory, that game should have been a 4-point game. And it wasn't. It also could have been a 10-point game, which I think if that Odell Beckham injury doesn't happen, that seems like a huge point in the game. Beckham was the number 1 target for Stafford in the early part of that game. It looked like he was going to be open all game. Stafford underthrows him a little bit. And unfortunately, it was a non-contact, really bad injury as soon as it happened. I feel bad for the guy because he was on pace to maybe be that MVP. He looked like it anyway.
And again, that fell right into our projection that the Rams were going to try and get him involved early.
Yeah.
And that was their game plan throughout this entire playoffs. And again, it was working very, very well. Obviously, he scored the first touchdown of the game.
Yep.
Momentum was looking good, but I did see a tweet from Deebo Samuel after the game
about the turf
and basically saying that the NFL should just get rid of all turf. And I'd like to see a study of how many non-contact knee injuries there have been in the NFL on turf versus grass to see
I would too. I would be
is.
interested to see that. I don't know if it makes a difference. Maybe I guess we'd have to see the numbers, right? The point. What is that? You're pointing your bicep. What is that?
No, we got a comment in the group about a short sleeve sweatshirt. So I just wanted to show off the guns a little bit.
Oh, nice. Good way to keep an eye on the chat. Appreciate it. So I don't know if that really does make a difference. I think Stafford's underthrow made a difference and maybe he's planting wrong or whatever, but that, whatever. That's unfortunate for him. I had him first touchdown. I pitched him anytime touchdown at +120. So good job for everybody who hopped on that. We knew Beckham was going to be involved. And unfortunately I took all of his overs and he was going to smash him, man. They were like 62.5 and he left the game before halftime with 52.
Of course, the one Beckham bet I followed you on didn't hit. And I should have followed you on the touchdown bets, but but I'm going to say if he doesn't get hurt, that 62.5 is easy cover.
Oh, he's covering 100 because he had 52 and then that drop on the third grab would have given him 7 or 8 more. So he's got 60 before halftime, maybe another catch. And obviously they keep him involved late.
Right.
So I think he's on his way to 100. We knew he'd score. We were on the right read of that. Unfortunately, he goes out and there's nothing you can do about it. So hopefully he's all right.
You can't predict an injury when you can't predict an injury.
Games. Yeah. What you also can't predict is Sean McVay going away from the run game. He was running the ball like he thought they were being successful. And there has never been a team with a least effective run performance that actually won the Super Bowl. So, man, what are they thinking? Running the ball so many times and having Cam Akers just get 1 yard and nothing else.
Hey, I was happy with him getting involved early with my futures MVP bet, getting 3 touches in the first 4 plays of the game.
Sure, and his first carry was like 5 yards.
But literally the way that offense is set up, they need to throw to set up the run. They gotta get everybody back and run like read draws so they can get some space for these running backs. Cause obviously Akers is still coming back from that Achilles injury. He's definitely not 100%. And then you got a couple other guys who are just banged up and haven't been proven in the NFL. Obviously Sony Michel, but he was in that Patriots offense with James White. They were a little bit more set up to run the ball more effectively than the Rams. And neither of these guys are Todd Gurley. So it's McVay again. It's 2 straight Super Bowls and 2 straight offensive performances that make you question if he's just trying to stick with the analytics or he's not reading the game right. I could see him maybe flowing towards the analytics with some of these play calls, but you gotta look with your eyes. You got a future Hall of Fame quarterback, and we'll get to that later. Running your show. You got 2 elite wide receivers. Get them the football and let them make plays instead of trying to establish something that won't work and really hasn't worked throughout the playoffs, even mostly the
Yeah.
entire season.
I mean, I get it to an extent at the start of the game. The Bengals don't have a great run D, and you have, three-headed monster essentially in the backfield, and they wanted to rely on Cam Akers a lot this year before he got hurt, but they just don't need it. They don't really need to run at all. And Matt Stafford in the first half off under center drop back play action. So out of the shot, or not out of the shotgun play action, 4 for 5, 45 yards, 1 touchdown. I don't know if McVay understands, and I guess coaches as a whole, because I think McVay is a very good coach, and I think he's incredibly smart in 95% of these aspects. But it's the other 5 that really stand out. I don't think that coaches get you do not have to run the ball effectively to have an effective play action game. Like running on 1st and 10 to get to 2nd and 8 does nothing for your play action game. You can just as easily throw a pass on 1st down and do play action on 2nd down after that. You don't have to run the ball 20 times for 15 yards throughout the game to establish that. Why even run? Do they get this? Like, do coaches still think you have to establish a run game to do play action? Because you don't.
No, and obviously the Packers have a good run game, but they're kind of backwards a little bit.
Sure.
But they have a little bit more talent than the Rams do there. But even in the Chiefs offense too, you don't have that elite running back that's going to establish the run. You
Right.
get the ball in your playmakers' hands as often as possible, and then you use that. You use your primary options to set up your secondary options, and not vice versa. And the
Right.
Rams seem to be doing it backwards, which probably cost them, you'd think, maybe a cover on the spread.
Definitely cost them a cover. And you think if this game goes sideways the other way, if Burrow completes that 4th down pass somehow, they get in field goal range or whatever, a couple plays go the wrong way. McVay's now got the stink of 2 Super Bowls, scoring 3 points in one and maybe scoring under 20 in the other one and losing to an inferior Bengals team, right? But he didn't. They won. So, it's all erased, and he gets to have a Super Bowl ring as a coach. And I think he deserves it. So good for him. But there's a lot of, very close calls to say McVay could have had 2 very disappointing Super Bowls. On the Bengals side of things, I give them a lot of credit defensively. I thought something that stood out is our man, Sweet Lou, again. He didn't fall into the blitz trap. He must have been listening to us last week, knowing that Matt Stafford is an elite quarterback, the best quarterback in the league against the blitz, and a bottom 10 quarterback against the league without the blitz. He did not blitz for most of this game, but he also did not go to the other end of the spectrum, right? And rush 3 and drop 8. He was rushing 4, dropping 7 a lot, sometimes bringing an extra rusher. He really didn't have too many disguised blitzes. Do you think we see more of that rush 3, drop 8 as time goes on? Like, do you think coaches, I think they're afraid to do it right now, but do you think as we see more reliance on the pass and more quarterbacks being better under pressure, do you think we see that drop 8 more in the coming years?
I could definitely see it happening. Just you got such talent at the quarterback position through the NFL that can really put the ball wherever they want across the board. Teams are going to try and take that away. And with a team like the Rams, if you take their strength away and force them to try to run the football or dump the football off and play 2-3 yards at a time, that really limits what that offense can do. And I think you're going to start to see defenses adapt to this new style of offense that we're seeing. And the Bengals have established a blueprint on how to be successful against it. Credit, they didn't win the game, but they beat the Chiefs, who are a more prolific passing offense than the Rams in the last several years, twice, and had a shot in this game when not a lot of people thought they had a chance to win. And they were one play away from potentially sending that game to overtime. And you never know with the coin flip, they could get the ball and that's it.
That's not a road I want to go down now. And it's fortunate, in a way, I know you had the overtime bet. It's fortunate that we don't have to talk about the overtime rules after the Super Bowl. But I mean, it was a good game. It would have been an instant classic, obviously, if it goes to overtime. This is the second year in a row, though, that we're talking about a depleted offensive line being probably the reason that a team loses the Super Bowl. Absolutely. Last year, we saw Mahomes run for his life and still put on one of the best quarterback performances I've ever seen in a Super Bowl, and it'll get lost to time because they got crushed. Mahomes was fantastic last year. Burrow was okay. I think he didn't make a mistake, but he didn't do anything special. But the O-line, again, is the reason that a team loses the Super Bowl. And maybe it's the Rams defensive line, so I don't want to give the Bengals too much shit, but they have to be better on the O-line.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be at least the priority this offseason for the Bengals in order to get back and get over the hump and become a world champion. You gotta strengthen the trenches. If you can't protect your franchise quarterback, the elite defensive lines will tear you apart. And that happened against Tennessee. That happened against the Rams in the
Right.
Super Bowl. And
Right.
You need to protect your best assets. And they've got the skill positions now kind of settled where you don't need to go out and draft another wide receiver, or you don't have to go and draft another running back. Go fill those positions on the offensive line. Maybe go get another defensive guy to get some pressure if you're going to start to fade back. A guy who's very good in the pass rush doesn't need linebackers coming over the top to help get home. I do like what the Bengals are doing, but obviously 2 straight Super Bowls, the weaker offensive line cost them the game.
Yeah, agreed. And that takes us to a great segue as far as the best plays of the game, right? So we'll talk about a couple of the best and maybe a couple of the worst and a couple of them that directly affected the outcome. The best play of the game to me is not, it's kind of a toss up between Cooper Kupp's entire final last drive, because that was an incredible showing from a wide receiver. Not only does he get the 4th and 1 call on a run, and I'd like to dive into that play a little bit more. I think he catches 4 balls on that drive, plus 2 touchdowns, one that was taken off the board, and he got popped in the head, helmet to helmet. And then the very next play or 2 plays later, he catches the game-winning touchdown. Plus he draws 2 holding calls inside the end zone or inside the 10-yard line. Unbelievable drive from him. But the play that I really want to talk about is the 3rd and 1 with the Bengals on the final drive. For some reason, they hand off to P. Ryan, and Mixon isn't even in the game. And I don't know if you've seen the replay of this, but I've watched it probably 50 times. Aaron Donald is like pushing whoever the offensive lineman is with his right hand. He pushes him back, grabs Samaje P. Ryan with his same right hand, and just like tug of wars a human backwards. And in 95% of instances, maybe 99, Samaje gets like this much more room, and that's a first down. Aaron Donald didn't let him go anywhere. You see his helmet, P. Ryan's helmet, emerge on one side of Aaron Donald and get yanked back on the other side. It's maybe the best defensive play I've ever seen.
He is a man among boys. He's been the best defensive player in the league the last 5-6 years. There's literally no doubting what he can do. And big time players make big time plays in big time games. That's the old saying. And when the Rams needed a play, you go with your ace, and he came up big, and he's been doing that for years. And I don't know if it's a panic or there's just confusion with personnel that's got to be in. But in a 2-minute situation, unless somebody's injured, you got to have your best players on the field trying to get you the yards you need to get yourself in position to score and tie that game or a chance to win. And
Right.
whether it's inexperience or not having enough big time games like that, something I think the coaching staffs, you can't just like be prepared for it. You got to live it. And again, just a questionable decision with personnel on the field at the end of that game. And
well, there's two
a questionable play call too. I think you probably try and get the ball in the Chase's hands as often as you can on that last drive. Make sure Burrow's getting it out of his hands quick, because he knew he had a bad knee at that point. Wasn't going to be able to scramble around that, and you saw that as a result of the fourth down play where Donald just ran over the guy and caught Burrow before he had a chance to scramble out of the pocket. And if he got out of that pocket, he's probably running for another 10, 15 yards. My block of the year covers right there, but
we're getting to that. Don't think I'm letting you off the hook there.
But bad knee and all. It's the best player on the field was Aaron Donald, and he made the biggest play of the game.
Yes.
And if you're an opposing team, you got to try whatever you can do to take that away, and either run the play away from him or get the ball to a playmaker that can make a play. And unfortunately, P. Ryan, no, he's a good player, but he's not the person you want in that situation.
So a couple angles there. One, Zach Taylor, I don't know if you saw, he said that it was his fault. He didn't get the play call in on time, and that was why Mixon wasn't on the field and why they ran it. So take that for what you will. Maybe that's a coaching error. It probably is a coaching error. But Mixon's their best offensive player. It's not Burrow, it's not Chase, it's Joe Mixon. He's their best all-around offensive player. He needs to at least be on the field for like a threat of run, right? But Aaron Donald makes that third down stop, which is incredible. If you haven't seen the highlight, go watch it. And then he almost sacks Burrow on fourth down, which is, if not the play of the game, the second best play of the game, right? And he, if he gets that sack, maybe he wins the MVP. I don't know. But it was him, literally all him on the last drive, stopping the Bengals from getting any more yards. And they probably only needed a couple more to get, McPherson within range.
I'm sure if they had a shot around like the 40, 35,
I think you give him a
line,
shot from like 65.
He's been solid all year. If they get over the 50, you probably give him a shot. And
you at least give him a chance, right? And I mean, if he misses from 65, 67, whatever, if he makes it, it's one of the best kicks ever, especially one of the most important kicks up there with like the snow kick and everything.
If he hit a game-winning field goal from 65 yards in the Super Bowl, I would consider that the best kick of all time.
Yeah, well, it would have been tying, right? But it's still, if they end up winning the game, then it's
right,
in theory a game-winning kick. Donald also underrated. Another sequence I want to talk about. So they get, the Higgins touchdown, which is coming up next, and then Stafford throws a tip ball interception, and the Bengals are on like the Rams 30, and Aaron Donald sacks Burrow 2 times in a row. If they had scored a touchdown there, the game might have gotten away from the Rams, and they would have been up, I think, 14 at that point. And Donald let them get nothing, and they have to settle for a field goal. Money Mac nails it, but they don't take command of the game at that point, and that's Aaron Donald as well. How about the Higgins face mask, though, man? Coming out of the second half, T. Higgins gets a 75-yard touchdown from Joe Burrow, literally yanked Jalen Ramsey's head 90 degrees. No call. That seems kind of relevant.
Yeah, I feel like Ramsey should have made more of a case there, but
I don't think he was fighting enough, right? Like I don't think he played enough.
If it's something that blatant and it doesn't get called, you got to fight, especially if the play results in a touchdown. Now, literally right out of the gates of the second half, that happened. I don't know what Ramsey was thinking, but inexcusable that does not get called in that situation. That's
a bad miss by the refs, and I know, and I'm not, I won on my bet, so I'm not complaining about it at all, but if that outcome had been different, I'm glad that it wasn't different. Let's put it that way, because that play was so pivotal. It was right out of halftime. It gave the Bengals, some life essentially. And I'm glad that it ultimately didn't factor into the outcome of the game. I know you could say there's some missed calls on both sides, but that one just seemed pretty pivotal. It almost seemed like it was, the refs might have thought he was flopping because it was so dramatic, right? His head turned so much that they may have thought like, no, it can't be that he pulled his helmet that much. But obviously on the replay he did. That's why I stand that there should be no refs if they can't get these things right.
Yeah, and there were a couple other questionable calls or questionable no calls that you had some blatant false starts on the offensive line. I don't know if it was on one side or both sides.
Probably.
There's a situation where Aaron Donald was lined up literally off sides and they didn't call it. I don't know if it was the camera view or whatever, but he was, based on the view that I saw, he was clearly offsides, not called. I think it led to a sack. But for the NFL, I'd be disappointed in the NFL right now, just because if that's who you consider the elite reffing team, I know they don't have their normal teams. The refs, they kind of like pick and choose from different squads, because usually throughout the season, that same crew refs each game together throughout the season. But for the Super Bowl, they're pulling guys from different crews together. So, but if they're supposed to be the best, you got to be able to make the calls that are correct, and the ones that are blatantly obvious. It's just a bad product on their end.
And it sucks because for the most part, like that, they swallowed their whistle, and there were not a lot of penalties called until the end of the game. And I thought for the most part, right, like they did a pretty good job staying out of it.
Right, but if a penalty's a penalty,
just a couple.
You got to call it. You got to call it.
If it's something as blatant as the face mask getting ripped to turn the guy's head around, you got to call it. I don't mind them missing some holding calls here and there. Like I would rather them not call holds and stuff,
right,
because it's so dramatic. But stuff like that, whatever. And if you want to say it evened out with a ticky-tack Cooper Kupp hold on the final drive, then guess what? It evened out. You know what I mean? And I think for the most part, the refs did a fine job in this game. They did not factor into the final outcome. Is that fair?
No, they didn't. No, it was not questionable calls, but nothing that directly impacted the final result.
Right. For the most part, I thought they did a good job of staying out of it. So good job to all the reps that I'm sure are watching us. But hey, let's talk about our bets. We had some good ones, we had some bad ones, but of course we're here to only talk about the good ones. And then we'll mention some bad ones going away, but best bets first. So I had Trey Hendrickson of the Bengals to record a sack at -130. He scored the first sack of the game. So I got that out of the way.
First defense possession for the Rams. You nailed that. Great.
First play, or for one of the first plays of the game, I got that. Beckham first touchdown. I talked about that was +900 when I grabbed it, down to like +600 by kick. So good timing there. Beckham anytime touchdown was +120. I pitched that one. Burrow under 272.5 passing yards. So that one hits. And it's funny because he goes over his initial prop of 250 something. What did he get? Something in the 260s. So he goes over the opening line and under the closing line. So if you liked him to go over, you had to take that one early. If you liked him to go under and you got the late line, you win that one. And first half under 24 points. How about that mixed extra point for me, man? Because it landed 13-10 on 23. It was down to 23.5 by kickoff. Ultimately, it didn't matter. Under wins again.
Dude, first half unders in primetime games this year have almost been as much of a lock. And I'm surprised we haven't really preached them as much as we have. Kind of just sitting on the Steelers side of things, but across the board, in most primetime games, you go under in that first half. I wouldn't be surprised if it's hitting at a 70 to 75% clip, which is something.
Yeah, I'd have to double check, or at least in the games that we think are trending under, right? If we think the game in general goes under, the first half's usually going under.
Yeah, and something we should probably look at and kind of stress a little bit more going into next season. As for some of us that are preaching locks, maybe my record gets a little bit better if I just hammer first half unders and that's it. But next year.
And I think that's something maybe we examine, one of these episodes in the coming weeks or months, we'll talk about some strategies that we can learn from this year going into next year. But go ahead and tout some of your best bets that you had winners from this Sunday.
Yeah, well, I kind of split overall. I think in the picks that we posted on Twitter, I think I went 5-5, but
I think we both did.
Couple of the big ones, but obviously I had a 4-unit bet on the Bengals +4.5. So that was a big cash. And I had a 2-unit bet on the under 48.5, which also hit. So I ended up being in the green on the day by plus 120 some dollars, which was good. Nice. McPherson over 1.5 field goal attempts. Cake, even though it was at -176, free money.
Yeah, I had to lay a little vig for that. It turned out to be the right number though, didn't it? He only got 2 attempts. Yeah.
Yeah. And he only got 2 attempts, made both, but I felt he was going to get at least 2 in there, and which we were correct there. Knew they were going to try and target Chase. He had a couple of big plays in the game, so his over 78.5. I think you got him at a lower number. His total flew up right before game time. It was.
I got him actually under 80.5, and so I lose, but he would have gone under if not for that last 12-yard catch, right? So we were both kind of right where he didn't get utilized like I thought he wouldn't. But then he goes over the number because he gets a catch on the last drive. So you win that one.
So I won that one, missed on the total receptions by, I think he finished with 4.
Probably 4.
And we got it at 5.5. So that was a bad beat.
Maybe I should have gone under that.
And then the other lock of the year was a Stafford INT. I felt we were right. The Bengals were going to play back and force Stafford to make throws. And eventually he was going to throw a pick, and pretty happy that one.
And so he throws 2. Surprisingly, I don't think either of them were much his fault. The first one was probably Van's fault for going over instead of going under, and it's a toss up in the end zone. And the second one was a tip ball. So Stafford somehow throws 2 picks, neither of them being his fault, but you definitely called that one. Good job. Over 2.5 pass throwers. That was a fun one that I had at +170. We ended up with 4 pass throwers. And 5, technically, if you count Hecker on the botched extra point, which doesn't go in the books as a pass attempt. But there were 5 individuals who threw the ball in this game. That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and we had talked about that last week, and
it's always a fun one.
I wish I could have. I did not find that bet, unfortunately, so I couldn't place it. But I felt like that was something that I was going to.
It's always a fun one, and I have no research on it or anything, but obviously you have the 2 quarterbacks. Mixon actually throws a touchdown, so there's another bet out there over 2.5 touchdown throwers, which I think is like 6 or 7 to 1, which is
that was a good bet if you took that one.
But
again, this is a situation where it's the last game of the year. You don't have to hide anything in the playbook.
Right.
Let it rip, and you kind of get in those goal line situations. You got to throw something different out of defense, and obviously the Bengals were executing on it. They scored the running back throw for the touchdown. But something definitely to consider next year for
Yeah.
sure.
So the
Especially
two
with
quarterbacks.
two offensive minds this creative. You got to look for something wacky here or there. And there was a Philly special run that was incomplete,
Yeah,
but
I mean they had it
the
though.
attempt was there.
They had it complete. Cup just missed him, and Stafford probably would have got lit up anyway. So probably better that he missed him. But we had 4 throwers, and it's funny because you look at that over 2.5. Who's the guy you think that would be throwing that the third individual? It's Beckham, right?
You think it's OBJ because he's
and
done
he
it
goes
before.
out, and you still get 4 or 5 people throwing the ball, which is crazy. So that's always a fun one to look at. Some of the worst bets that I had, some bad beats. Something that always makes my bet slip is the second half will be a higher scoring than the first half. These teams came out much more determined to their script and much more effective than I thought they would. So that's a loser. They're like killing the first quarter there. Beckham over 62.5 yards, obviously a bad beat for me. He was well on his way to getting that. One I forgot to talk about in my best bets was Rams team sacks over 3.5. They got to 7. So that smashed pretty easily. And there wasn't much vig on that. And the worst beat that I had was Bengals first drive to end in a punt. So I don't know if you remember this, but they get to about midfield and it's 4th and 1 and they go for it and they don't get it.
Yeah.
So they don't get any points, but also I don't win that bet because I bet it in a punt. I should have just bet no points, laid a little more big and took that one, but that's a bad beat for me. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, I was on the same side with Beckham. If he doesn't get hurt, that over cash is easy and we're fine. Yep. Discussed Chase 5.5 receptions. He was short of that by 1.5, I believe. Probably my worst bet of the day. And again, it was the one that I guaranteed a lock last week was Burrow over 11.5 rush yards. Obviously re-aggravating a previous knee injury from December is what the Bengals described it today as a sprained MCL. Really hurts your chances to run when you have a bum knee. And I wish it didn't happen, but it happened. He got tackled and rolled up, and I thought he was going to come out of the game. I thought he was done. I thought that was going to be the nail in the coffin for the Bengals. That was it. But props to him for gutting that one out and at least getting in the rest of that game and giving them a chance to win. Fortunately, if he has 2 fresh knees, he maybe gets out of the pocket on Aaron Donald. He doesn't get him on that last play. He scrambles for 10, 11 yards.
I don't want to hear these excuses. The guy had 3 rushing yards through 3.5.
We're setting an excuse for OBJ. It's an injured situation, and it is what it is. And I was short on it again. I'm 0-2 now in locks of the year.
0-2 on locks of the year.
I can't do it anymore. It's already February, so literally January 1st, I'm going to throw another lock of the year out, and we're going to start it off 0-3. But I just gotta. I don't know. Maybe I got a jinx on me and I can't do that. or if I throw out a lock of the year, just take the exact opposite and you'll be cashing all day long.
I guess so. So we had some winners, we had some losers. I came out obviously in the green. You came out in the green. Hopefully our listeners came out in the green from the Super Bowl. It's supposed to be fun, man, right? It's supposed to be a fun game. Spread your money out. Don't get too concentrated in one area. Have some fun with it. Do whatever you want. I'm still not positive if the anthem went over or under. The opening line was 1:45. So it did go over that. The line that I had it at was 1:51, and I timed it at exactly 1:51 on my phone. So I have no.
I actually missed the national anthem because
I know you did because I texted you.
I was watching the playoff of the Waste Management Open between Scotty Scheffler and Patrick Cantlay, and I lost track of time. And the next thing I know, I'm getting texts from you. Did the anthem go over or under? Like, I don't know. I wasn't watching.
Yeah, man, that's fine. We run a betting podcast, so it's just the Super Bowl. Don't worry about it.
No, just a small game.
I think probably the worst beat of the day, and the players have to start thinking about this. Joe Burrow shows up in that ridiculous suit, and now he has to put on that same suit in a loss and go face the podium. These guys got to show up with more thought in mind because that suit was horrible. Whoever dressed him, don't dress him again. But he came out in that. Like, did you see that suit? It's like the black and white tiger striped suit and looked horrible, man. He can't be doing that.
Yeah, it wasn't his best look, but I don't think that affected any way of how the game resulted.
Of course not. But it's the same as Cam Newton having to wear those fedoras and glasses after he gets smoked 30-3, right? You gotta have at least a backup in the wardrobe in case you lose, right? Come out in something else. I don't know.
I don't know if you got to be able to take the heat if you don't come up on top. So
I guess we have a comment in the chat. Have you ever considered giving out locks of the week instead of the year? Because then it doesn't pigeonhole you for the whole 12 months.
You know what? I could start doing that and start fading. Everybody start fading the crap out of it.
March is a new month, my friend. We can start over.
Yeah, February. Nah, February. It's second half of February. First half of February is done. Second half of February, we're turning the tides.
Well, hey man, it was a great NFL season. One word answer, scale of 1 to 10. What do you rate that Super Bowl? How good?
Probably a solid 8.
I give it about a 7.5. It was a close game in the end. There was some garbage in the middle, but ultimately it was everything I was looking for, right?
You had
big
fun plays. You had big plays, great performances. Atmosphere was great. You weren't sure what you're going to get out in LA, but I thought they did a great job. Again,
yeah, weird that it was still daytime at the halftime though. That kind of rubbed me wrong,
Yeah, it was. I thought it was cool, especially because usually for the halftime shows, you see like the stands like blacked out because it's just so dark out. But seeing like it's still lit, you could see the people with their phones and stuff watch. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was cool for something different.
I had no problem with it, but I thought it was a solid. It wasn't a stinker like the Niners or the Seahawks and Broncos several years ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Rams Patriots 10-3 fiasco. You had a lot of good plays. It was a close game throughout, and
good game.
Thought it was solid. Not the best I've ever seen, but
I had fun watching it. It was close. My Rams win. We're rich. That's all you can ask for, right? So let's take a look at some takes from this game. And it's crazy that one game every year makes such a difference on people's legacies, but it does. And that's what we're here to talk about, right? So Matt Stafford wins a Super Bowl. Is he going to the Hall of Fame?
He is now.
Sure, he is now, right?
And
it shouldn't be that way. He probably should be there regardless because of his career.
I disagree.
You kind of need. Well, I'm looking at it in totality, right? Does this game by itself make a difference? Yes, of course. Should it make a big difference if he loses this game by 3 instead of wins by 3? Does that change the man's whole career? It does, but I don't think it should. So I think he plays 5 or 6 more years. He racks up a lot more stats. And obviously with one Super Bowl, he's got, he's going to the Hall of Fame.
Breeze only had one Super Bowl and he's there.
Correct.
Stafford,
Breeze was going either way, right?
I don't think he was a Hall of Famer going into this year just because he had never won a playoff game. Obviously, he had the stats and everything. He had been to the playoffs a couple times, but you kind of felt you had an all-world wide receiver on your team, maybe possibly bailing you out. So there was a chance that could have been inflated a little bit because just the Lions organization is just an absolute dumpster fire. It's been like that for years, since it hasn't been solid since Barry Sanders was there. But now you kind of understand how great of a quarterback Stafford is. I mean, one play we didn't even talk about earlier was his no-look throw.
Incredible.
Which he had the linebacker turned around so Kupp could get around him on the outside and hit him on the opposite shoulder, which was
the stones on that man to throw no-look pass in that Super Bowl moment are incredible.
Yeah, it was gutsy and obviously best wide receiver this year. No doubt about it.
Oh, for sure.
You got to find a way to set him up. And Stafford, he has done no looks in the past, but I don't think any in that kind of moment in his career, and to be able to execute that to perfection was pretty awesome to see. And I'm excited for he deserved this. He went through hell in Detroit forever. And for him to get a chance on an actual team that could contend with some superstars around him, and obviously brought him a Super Bowl title. So I think he is now a lock for the Hall of Fame, unless
he's definitely getting in.
Even if like the rest of his career is derailed with injuries, I think he's now a lock for the Hall of Fame.
He's definitely getting in, and he's deserving of it. He's been a good quarterback all these years. Unfortunate that he was in Detroit, but you see him on a good team now, and it says something. The first year he's ever on a good team with McVay, who's a great coach, and some talent around him, he wins the Super Bowl. So I think that definitely sends him there. The next interesting question is there's a lot of talk about Aaron Donald retiring. Apparently that's been dismissed today, but I must be missing something. Why would he retire? He's in the prime of his career, right?
We've seen other guys retire in the prime of their career in the past, obviously with the knowledge of head injuries, and he is in the trenches all the time. So he's banging around all day long. He has nothing else left to prove at this point. He's arguably the best interior defensive lineman the game's ever seen. He now has a Super Bowl under his belt. What else does the man have to do?
And it's funny because you look at, you're so used to guys like Tom Brady, who are, the quarterback equivalent of Aaron Donald, right? The best at his position. And Brady always talks about raising the bar and having all these standards, and he expects to win 7. And that was his goal, to win all these Super Bowls. Aaron Donald, I heard him talking this week. And it might've been right after the game. Honestly, he said something to the effect of, when he came in the league, he didn't expect any of this, and he has surpassed every goal he could have ever set for himself. Right. So it's funny to see the two dualities of that, with Brady, who says, what's the next goal? And probably a more realistic figure in Aaron Donald, like, hey man, I never dreamed of being the best player in the league. And here I am. I've already done and achieved and surpassed everything I ever thought I could do for myself. I get it. The guy's got enough money for 5 lifetimes. Why would he keep doing it? Unless he's like, in love with playing football. So that's the reason for him to retire, but I don't think he will. Do you?
I don't think you will. Maybe if they win another one next year, he hangs him up.
Maybe
it's just now you're getting, once obviously he's in the prime of his career right now, but you're probably teetering in the low 30s. You're starting to get on the latter side of the career, and potential for injury or a serious injury increases significantly with age. Yeah. And I'm sure that was going through his head. And
yeah, sure.
you don't know, but for him, he's, in my eyes, he has nothing left to prove. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer already. He was.
Oh, I agree.
He was before this game, and this just solidifies him as probably the best interior defensive lineman we've ever seen.
Agreed. One word answer. Was he the MVP of the Super Bowl? One word, not 0.
Yes. I think he should have, but again, being an interior defensive lineman, you don't have those glory stats, but he did so much to disrupt that offense. And he was the pivotal guy in leading them to getting 7 sacks on Burrow.
Yeah.
Because he draws so much attention. And then in the biggest play of the game where you need to stop, and that the offensive line is trying to take you out, and he still finds a way to get out, get through, and get hands on Burrow to force an early pass to break up that play and seal the game. Cooper Kupp.
I don't think it was wrong.
Cooper Kupp had an unbelievable game. So honestly, I would have been fine with.
They could have done co-MVPs, right?
They could have, because they were both equally as important to their team successes on either side of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't have a problem. I wouldn't have had a problem if Donald won. I don't have a problem that Kupp won. I wouldn't have had a problem if they were co-MVPs. Apparently the votes that are cast for this, like 13 people vote, it's before the 2-minute warning, which is insane. But that's stupid. That's where the NFL wants them. So that's probably why Donald didn't win it.
What if the game goes to overtime?
Well, that's the thing, right? And that happened in the Brady Super Bowl. They can change their vote, but they have to submit a vote before the 2-minute warning, which is crazy because you don't see the results until 20 minutes after the game anyway, but whatever.
Stupid. Let the confetti float and they vote in 5 minutes after that.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. But I would have been all right with either of them winning MVP and Super Bowl MVP. It doesn't even matter. So who cares? Last one. And you and I probably sit on opposite sides of this. But the question is, does Joe Burrow ever make it back to a Super Bowl? And I want to start with a question we posed last week before the Super Bowl, which was over under 0.5 Super Bowls for Joe Burrow. And you went over and I go under. And I'm curious to know if you still have that position. But if you, interestingly enough, and this bet was available on the offshores like Bovada and stuff. And I don't remember what the odds were. But if you took Joe Burrow under a half Super Bowl last week, you're getting odds of, they were plus 160 to win the game, right? So you're getting odds of, I don't know, minus 200. If you take him under a half this week, you have to pay like minus 1,000 just because it's so hard to get back to a Super Bowl, right? So I'm curious to know, would you still take Joe Burrow over 1/2 Super Bowl?
Yes.
Really? Okay. See, I don't think they ever get back.
I'm going to tell you why. He's a younger guy in the league. It's only second year in the league. So he's got plenty of time left. He's got weapons around him. Obviously they got to clean up the offensive line, even if it's not with Cincinnati. You may, and he starts to put up stats like across the board, like what Stafford did in Detroit. Cincinnati's a little bit in better position right now than Stafford was at any point in his career. You got a bona fide star at wide receiver. He's a rookie. You got a stud at running back, which the Lions never had.
What, Amir Abdullah doesn't do it for you?
No, not at all. But you may come into a situation where next 5-6 years, he keeps winning games, but they can't get over the hump. Maybe a couple guys get hurt. He gets traded to a contender with better weapons around him, like Stafford did this year.
Maybe.
So I still, because he's so young and he's already gotten to this point so early in his career, he knows how to get there. Now it's just getting over the last hurdle. And in my eyes, it's only a matter of time until Burrow wins a Super Bowl, whether it's with Cincinnati or not.
It's interesting because I'm going to take him under a half Super Bowl. I don't think he ever gets back to even play. I would take him under half of an appearance in a Super Bowl, just because it's so hard to get there. And yeah, he's young, but you know who else is young is Josh Allen and Herbert, right? And Mahomes, right? Mahomes isn't old, so he's still around. And the AFC is just stacked. And there's a very good chance that Rodgers ends up in the AFC next year too. So for that reason alone, I'm taking him under a half. I think that this Bengals team kind of had to win this one because, you know, and I've been using the word fluky a lot with them, but it's true. You know, they're a couple plays away from losing a month and a half ago. They're a couple plays away from missing the playoffs, right? And I know that's true of a lot of teams that go throughout the season. It's just so hard to get there. And I don't know that they'll ever get to another one. I wouldn't assume, you know, like Al Michaels, his parting word, even he couldn't help himself on the broadcast, you know, watching Burrow walk off the field, he said, he'll be back. And I'm just thinking, I'm not so sure he will be back. You can't take it for granted at the very least, right? He might get back, but I can't take this Super Bowl as a sign that he will ever get back.
But I think Burrow's kind of a weird situation where I feel like there's going to be guys around the league that may want to take pay cuts and want to come play with him. I
don't know.
I think you're going to have that kind of scenario where, I mean, if somehow they land Gronkowski this offseason.
Do you think he makes any difference? I don't think he makes any difference.
No, but it's a Hall of Fame weapon. And
I mean, I guess
maybe you get a couple stars on the offensive line out of free agency to help button that up. It's a whole completely different ball game.
I think the Burrow hype is just too early.
They have the pieces. They're just one or two pieces short of being one of the best teams and some team to consider.
Yeah, and I mean, they're fine. Like they're not a bad team.
The Bills and Chiefs are the cream of the crop right now, but
right.
I don't think Cincinnati's as far behind them as we're making them out to be right now.
Yeah, see, I think they're too much lumped in with those two teams in the general consensus. Vegas knows what's up. I think the Bengals win total is 9.5 next year, and their Super Bowl odds are the same as the Ravens. I think they're like 21-1 or something like that.
Yeah, they're 20-1.
So 20-1. So they're not like, you know, the overwhelming favorite to get back there. I just think the Burrow hype is a little too early, man. Like, yeah, he had a good season. He wasn't phenomenal in any of these playoff games. He was fine. But he didn't, you know, blow me away in any of these games. And I just, you know, I would like to take a step back from all the Brady comparisons and everything to Burrow for a second and say there's a very good chance he may never get back here, right? And you want to say, okay, well, maybe if the Bills beat the Chiefs, I think they beat the Bengals, right? If the Chargers tie with the Raiders or beat the Raiders, I think they beat the Bengals. So it's very easy to say that they could not get back here. Would I be surprised if the Bengals got back next year? Absolutely. I'd be floored. Would I be surprised if Burrow ends up in the Super Bowl in the next 5 to 7 years? No, I think he very much could get back there. Like you said, whether it's with the Bengals or somebody else. I'd be very surprised if they did it next year. Maybe not as surprised if they did it in the next 5 years. Speaking of next year, let's talk about our way too early Super Bowl picks for next year. And I want to preface this by saying my Rams bet was in June, so I'm not making any formal picks until the summer because we need to see what shakes out. We need to see, you know, at least the beginnings of the offseason before we make any formal picks, but it's never too early to have a little fun. And that's what we're doing with this. We're having a little futures fun. So we each have 2 picks. We have a more realistic pick, and then we have a longer shot pick. And let's start with the realistic pick. I'm going to go boring. I'm going to go chalk. I'm going to go with the Bills, man. The Bills are 7-1 right now. Them and the Chiefs are the favorites, both at 7-1. I think there's a very realistic shot that they make it back to the Super Bowl and they win. And I think at the very least, they're going to be in the final 4 teams next year. And everybody's looking for this year's Bengals next year, right? Who's going to make it next year at 20-1 or they were 125-1. Well, yeah, the truth is Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls and he was probably predicted to win 5 or 6 of those, right? So it doesn't always have to be a long shot. I think there's a pretty good shot the Bills get there and win. That's my predictive pick. How about you?
Yeah, and obviously this is contingent on a lot of things going on, but from what I've seen so far with Green Bay, and this, I'm going to try and be as unbiased as possible here. Um, their problem with special teams this year, we've discussed that at great length. They went out and hired probably the best person for the job to handle their special teams already, which was the Raiders interim coach, which I think is a home run hire for them, to get him on their
Good hire.
staff, because
Mhm.
the players love to play for him, at least out in Oakland or Vegas. They love playing with him, and obviously he has the command of them to get them. Somehow he got that team to the playoffs after all the turmoil that they went through throughout the year.
Yeah.
I think it's a home run hire for the Packers, and they're right now going at 13-1. But again, that's all completely contingent on, is Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams coming back.
You got to watch Rodgers. If he leaves the Packers, your money's not on the Packers.
No, that line probably goes to 100-1.
They're far down the list. Exactly.
Yeah, they're completely out of the
and that's why we say we got to wait a little bit, right?
And
but if the chips fall as we think they will, those are our chalk picks, we'll call them, right? Because the Packers are a top 6 or 7 odds team. The Bills are the first top team. So those are our boring picks. And now let's get to our little more fun picks. This is actually a pick that I've already put $20 on. For full disclosure, I had a free $20 bet in my DraftKings account. I put it on there. I suggest you do the same with $5. Why not, right? How about the Chargers, man? 25-1 on most books. There's a case they could have gotten there this year. If they didn't blow that game against the Raiders in week 18, I think the Raiders could have beaten the Bengals and almost did. And so I think that the Chargers definitely could have beaten the Bengals. And you say the biggest competition in the AFC is the Chiefs. Well, guess what? They're a division rival, and the Chargers have really not had a problem at least staying competitive with the Chiefs. So why not, man? Let's take a shot on Herbert, one of probably the third best quarterback in the AFC, right behind Mahomes and Allen. And it's probably not that big of a talent gap. They have Austin Eckler, who's a fantastic running back. And I was listening to him on a podcast this week, talk about how he really thinks that they could have won the Super Bowl if they got to the playoffs. And with what happened with the Bengals, I say, why not? $20 on the Chargers, 25-1 right now. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. And we had preached them at the beginning of this year, and obviously they were just a year probably too early. But
yeah, I had them to win the division this year at 6-1. It was looking great early on, and then they, stunk up the bed.
And I literally just changed my pick for this long shot. Literally changed it. So I was going to put the Bengals down just to disclose it, but I feel like we talked about them too much. I'm going to go with a team that they're still a very good team. Shortly, a couple years ago, they were the number 1 seed in the AFC with the same quarterback running them, and they were just hammered with injury upon injury upon injury this year. So you get all those guys healthy and them coming back, you've got another contender with a young superstar quarterback with all his pieces, and you're not relying on third or fourth string or free agent pickups at running back. The Ravens at 20-1, something to consider here, just because if their guys get healthy and they stay it's going to be very rare that they run into the same exact run of injuries that they had. Like, I don't think any team
almost impossible
more banged up than them. So you got to assume they're going to be a lot healthier than they were last year. But they've had playoff experience. Lamar Jackson's hungry. That's another team with a young quarterback to throw into the Mahomes, Herbert, Burrow, Allen situation with the AFC.
Yeah. I don't hate that pick, man. Like I love Lamar. I think he's a special talent. He was my MVP for 8 to 10 weeks of the season because of what he was doing with that team. It was basically all him willing them to win. And then, they ran out of steam, just too much to overcome. But at 20-1, that's probably the best odds that you'll see them. He's maybe the 4th or 5th best quarterback in the AFC, right behind Herbert and Mahomes and Allen. So why not take a shot on them? My brother-in-law is going to love that pick. A lot of Ravens support in my in-laws household. So that'll go well. And I think they could do it, man. I think they could do it. And I would love to see an AFC championship game with one of those 3 teams, the Chargers 25-1, the Ravens 20-1, and the Bills 7-1. If we have 2 of them going off, we've already won at that point, right? So hopefully we can cash some of these bets. We're going to talk a lot more futures during this offseason as things progress. We're also going to talk, in the coming weeks, NBA, some college hoops. Obviously, we're getting towards March Madness, so that'll be our focus once we get a couple weeks deeper here. But a good NFL season, man. I think we did well for our first NFL season together on the show. We definitely pitched some winners, some losers out there as always, but I think overall we had more winners than losers.
Yeah, I'm glad this kind of stuck. I know we tried this in the past and we lasted maybe like 2 episodes and it just didn't stick. But to basically run through the entire first season, now we got some momentum going into some other sports. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit down without the NFL, but again, NBA is going to pick up. We're right at the All-Star break for that, so we're going to be getting to the home stretch and the playoff push there. So you're going to start seeing a lot of the superstars playing a lot more regularly. So should help out with the lines and picks. And then obviously March Madness is another animal of itself. And we're gonna start to wrap right into the first golf major of the year with the Masters right around the corner.
Oh,
too.
I can't wait.
So,
it's
we're
a good
about
time of year, man.
We're about a month and a half out of there. So something we haven't really talked about too much in this podcast is the golf side of things. And I think that's something that we're going to be leaning on in the next several weeks as the majors and the big turn, like Players Championships in a couple weeks, Masters shortly after that, and you start the string with the majors. And I'm in a couple season-long pools, so I'm going to be paying quite a bit of attention to golf over the next several months, and hopefully lead you guys down the path to get some winners out of these tournaments.
Yeah, man, there's some money to be made in golf for sure. And I don't know if I told you this, but speaking of the NBA and superstars, I got tickets to that Nets Sixers game, March 10th. With Simmons coming back home, and I hope they all play. And I'm just envisioning the scene where Ben Simmons misses 2 free throws in the second half of that game. And Wells Fargo Center thing is if an away player misses 2 free throws, everybody in the stadium gets free Frosties. So I can only imagine the ruckus crowd that will go on if Ben Simmons misses 2 free throws and we're all going home with free Frosties.
I think you're going to get a similar atmosphere to the Texas Tech matchup that happened a couple weeks ago, where the former Texas Tech coach took the Texas job starting this year, his first game back, and the fans were just ripping into him, basically calling him a traitor. And the underdogs, Texas Tech, ended up winning that game. So you got Simmons coming back in Philly, and we all know how those fans are going to be. So it could be Christmas in March.
Well, and it's funny. And I see my wife chiming in on the chat. How did we not talk about Ben Simmons? We probably should have talked more about Ben Simmons, but we'll get to that in our next episode because we'll have some time to talk about him. And we were talking about this because she's obviously going to the game with me. And we were talking about, she doesn't know the whole story of Simmons quitting on Philadelphia, essentially. And I was telling her, like, if he plays in this game, it could be a similar reaction to like LeBron going back to Cleveland, because of how much Philadelphia hates Ben Simmons. And I think it'll be the loudest atmosphere I've ever been a part of, for sure.
It'll be the best atmosphere probably all year in an NBA regular season game, bar none.
I think so too. And it should be a good game. It's a TNT game.
From what I've seen, he is looking towards that game being his first game back. Now, if he says that and doesn't show,
I think he's going to play before that, but I think that'll be, I think he's going to play that game.
You could see Armageddon if he's at that game on the bench.
If he doesn't play, he can't even show up. He can't even travel.
You can't go to that arena.
Not at all.
I
think he plays. Maybe he tries to exercise some demons. Harden will be playing by then, and Durant should be healthy by then too. And Kyrie can play in Philadelphia. So I'm hoping that all the stars come out. Maybe it's a good game.
Where are your seats?
Oh, we're like barely in the arena, man, like top of the top deck, but I just needed to be in the crowd for this one.
Yeah, that should be an unbelievable atmosphere if all the players are actually playing that
maybe we'll try to do something, live from the stadium at that point. I'll have to place a hefty wager, but it'll have to be on the Sixers in that game because there's not a chance in hell I can even hint about rooting for the Nets in that atmosphere, or else I'll get beaten up in the stadium or something. Philly's crazy. But hey, this was good, man. Thanks for, our good first NFL season. Looking forward to keeping the profits rolling. Thanks for everybody who tuned in on YouTube. Again, chat was pretty lively tonight, so thank you for that. Keep tuning in on Wednesdays. We'll be back next episode talking some hoops, talking some NFL offseason.
And follow the Twitter for more of our picks.
I forgot to plug it. Follow the Twitter. We're going to be doing picks every night, just as usual. Burke's going to get his winning streak coming eventually. I'm going to keep the NBA money flowing. And until next time, my friends, let's go make some money.
Let's do it.